Hi everyone and welcome back. Got another landscape drawing demo for you today. What I'm going to be doing is a landscape that I drew here on YouTube about 2 years ago. I'm going to put a link to that old video in the description below. It's only a sort of a 1-minute time-lapse video, but several people expressed an interest in it to actually see it done as a full demonstration or a lesson. So what I've done, I've made about 8 videos of the drawing that I've just done, and I've posted them on Patreon, and they're all there as lessons. If you're interested, just pop along there and have a look. I'll put a link in the description below, and there'll be a link in the end cards at the end of the video on the screen. It's a simple forest scene done with graphite powder. So the materials that I'm going to be using today are the Daler-Rowney smooth heavyweight paper, A4 size, Derwent pencils, and some Ñoor pencils which I used to scrape graphite powder, which I used a pen knife for, pen knife blade there. I also used the Ñoor eraser pencil and the Tombow Mono Zero 2.3mm eraser, and a kneadable eraser, blending stump. I also used a little bit of kitchen paper and a few cotton buds for blending as well, and of course the dust brush. And that was the kit, the entire kit that I used for this drawing. So hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting out with a woodless pencil. It's an HB. I'm just scraping some graphite powder down, mainly around the edges of the paper. And I'm using a piece of cotton wool just to blend it all into the paper. I did actually apply several more layers of graphite to build the tones up a little bit more. Now I'm using the kneadable eraser just to dab out a few highlights and start shaping some of the graphite powder that we just put down. And then with some graphite powder on the end of the blender, I use that to start a little bit of a texturing process for the foliage. Just working in little circular motions. And now with the Derwent pencils, I'm just starting to draw out the tree shapes. Now I have to say about the Derwent pencils, apparently these are new and improved. You know, they're the latest ones. But I have to say, I found them really gritty. Every single one of them, all 6 pencils, were absolutely full of grit. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if I've got a bad batch, or if this is normal. I really don't know. But I have to say, these are probably some of the worst pencils I've ever used in 30 years of drawing. So I'm not going to be linking those in the description below. I'm only going to link the stuff that I actually, recommend to use. And I honestly can't recommend these. They're just way too gritty. I was actually going to do a review of them, but I thought, well, it'll be a very negative review, so I'm actually going to contact Derwent and see what they have to say about this, just in case they have had a bad batch or something like that. So I don't want to do a review yet and give a negative account of them if it's just sort of a one-off, So anyway, I continued with the Derwent pencils through the entire picture. I wanted to give up sort of halfway through because I was really struggling with the grit. But for the Patreons, I said at the start that I was going to do the entire picture with Derwent pencils, the new Derwent pencils, to test them out and see what they're like. So I kind of persevered with it and done the entire drawing with the Derwent pencils. I mean, when they work lovely. They do feel smoother than the old version. When you're actually dragging them across the paper, they feel a lot slicker. But the trouble is, there's just too much grit you know, at various intervals throughout the use of the pencil. It was really, really bad. You know, I'm not trying to be over dramatic here. I mean, I love Derwent Pencils. I think I own about, every single type of pencil that they've ever made, apart from the Inktense pencils. So it's not that I'm against Derwent Pencils at all. I absolutely love the company. But these, I have to say, were a real letdown. So yeah, I'll see what Derwent has to say about that. Anyway, you probably noticed that the video's highly edited because the drawing took me about 20 hours to do, and obviously to squeeze all that down into a 10-minute YouTube video, it's got to be highly edited, so sorry about that. But it is all in real time, and I know a lot of you don't like the time lapse, so it is all in real time for you. So obviously there's quite a bit of the drawing missing there, but there's lots more videos on Patreon to accompany this one, if you're interested in drawing this one at home. The videos on Patreon are obviously a lot more in depth, and I can explain things a lot better, the techniques I use, and the thoughts as I'm drawing and everything. So it's a lot more detailed over there. It's a full tutorial basically, all in real time, with narration and everything. So it's a much better explanation of how I've done the techniques and how I finished this drawing. Anyway, I mean, it's basically another graphite powder drawing in that that kind of style that I often do, and it's a really nice scene to actually draw. Quite a bit of work involved, quite a bit of texturing and layering, etc. But I think it's a really nice scene and really worth taking the time with. It doesn't actually exist anywhere. It's completely made up from my imagination. And like I say, this is the second time round that I've done it, and I decided to just increase the textures and add a little bit more detail here and there compared to the last drawing. So again, you can let your imagination run wild with this, and just do whatever you want really. But I wanted to stay fairly true to the original drawing, because that's the one that people expressed their interest in, that they'd like to see it done as a lesson. So I'm trying to keep it fairly true to the original one, but it's the kind of drawing that would lend itself well to adding extra branches on some of those trees, even putting a couple of figures walking along the path, or a deer off into the distance there just behind the left hand tree or something like that. Or it's a type of scene where you can just leave it just like this, nice and peaceful, a quiet woodland walk sort of thing. It's also not quite as difficult as it looks either. The graphite powder technique is quite a simple one, in the early stages, but obviously when you're looking at this drawing, it does get a lot more involved in the later stages. But it's still fairly simple, although it's highly detailed, and it's more time consuming than difficult, I would say. So if you're going to do something like this, you've got to be fairly patient. You've got to take your time and not rush it or anything like that. I actually think it's probably better to spend a week doing one drawing and do it really well than do a drawing every day over the course of a week, 7 drawings, and all of them not look quite so good or quite so finished. But on the other hand, I mean, again, that's fairly subjective, isn't it? That's down to your drawing style. I mean, some people do 2 or 3 sketches a day, don't they, and they're happy doing it. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is to do this kind of drawing with this amount of detail, you are going to need to spend probably the best end of a week drawing it. But that's not 8 hours a day or anything. It's like I say, the drawing took me 20 hours, but that's kind of a couple of hours a day, here and there. And it soon builds up. You soon start to see the progress. And personally, I think it's more satisfying than trying to rush a drawing. I would rather spend 20 hours on one drawing than 20 hours doing 20 drawings. But hey, you know, that's just me. You know, we're all different, aren't we? So yeah, I mean, it's just really a bit of advice for some of the beginners, because some of them that send their drawings in to me on Patreon, the first thing I notice is they need to spend a lot longer on the drawings. You know, I don't think people really realise just how long it can actually take to do, you know, a fairly realistic graphite drawing. Although this one's not hyper realistic or hyper photorealistic or anything like that, you know, there's certain elements and areas in the drawing which are actually quite impressionistic. But again, it's all part of, you know, your individual style, you know, what you actually like to see in your drawings. But nonetheless, you know, there's a lot of detail there, regardless of whether it's impressionistic or realistic, and either way, you know, it's going to take time. So just about at the end of it now. So there we go, there's the finished drawing. 20 hours work in 10 minutes. So yeah, I hope you like that. I hope it was helpful to you. And it'll be great to see you over on Patreon as well. So thanks very much for watching. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.